Yes. All right. Welcome. All righty. Now switch over. Now this is from historicuk.com. All righty. History UK / History of Wales. Princess Gwenllian. All righty. So the name of the article, Princess Gwenllian and the Great Revolt by Jessica Brain. Right. Sleep, Gwenllian, my heart's delight. Sleep on through shivering spear and brand. And apple rosy red, thy baby hand, thy pillow cheeks, a pair of roses bright, thy heart is happy as day and night. This traditional lullaby remembers Princess Gwenllian's bravery, her tragic tale echoed in the verses of Caniad Hune Gwenllian. The lullaby is attributed to Meilir Brydyd. That's Meilyrbydy, who was the chief bard of the court of the king of Gwynedd. Gruffudd op Cynan in the early 1100s. Gwenllian was a warrior princess leading an army of Welshmen in 1136 against the mighty Norman forces. Her bravery has made her a beloved figure, revered much like Boudica for her strength and tenacity in the face of great danger. Sadly, her story came to a tragic end. However, Almost 1,000 years later, Gwenllian is still remembered as a heroine in the history books. Born in 1100 on Ynys Môn, the Grafud ap Cynan, Prince of Gwynedd, and his wife Angharad, Gwenllian was the youngest child with 4 older sisters called Susanna, Anest, Mareed, and Rhiannell, kind of like Rhiannon, but with a Nell on the end, 2 ends, as well as 3 older brothers called Owain, kind of similar to Gawain, maybe O'Sheen, maybe that's a stretch, Cadwallader, and Cadwallon. This large family had prominent lineage and were descendants of Brian Boruma Mac Senatig, High King of Ireland. I have Welsh descent, I might add, and Irish. Gwenllian grew to become a great beauty and caught the eye of Prince de Hubarth, Grufid ap Rhys, when he traveled to Gwynedd to meet her father in 1113. The attraction was overwhelming, she said, to not only be very attractive, but also educated and intelligent, making her the perfect match for the prince. The prince and Gwenllian subsequently eloped. She went to join his family as princess consort of the Hubarth. The couple went on to have children. Morgan, born in 1116, Maelgwyn, or Geen, however, who was born 3 years later, and Rhys, born in 1132 in Carmarthenshire. This was a very turbulent time. The Hubarth was in the midst of a struggle with the incoming English, Norman, and Flemish forces, gaining a foothold in the south of Wales. As fighting ensued, the royal couple were forced to flee into the bastion of the mountainous forest area, where Gwenllian joined her husband in launching strikes against the invading force. From this stronghold, Gwenllian and her husband harassed the Norman, English, and French, launching retaliatory strikes on their positions in De Hubarth, as well as attacking the enemy. Gwenllian and Grafud also took money and possessions from the foreign forces and redistributed them to the native Welsh. Much like Robin Hood and Maid Marian, these actions earned them much fame and admiration, yet their roles were about to become even more important. In 1135, King Henry I died. After his death, a succession crisis emerged. In 1120, Henry's rightful heir, his son William Adelin, had drowned in the White Ship disaster. I don't think that was an accident, in my opinion. This led Henry to nominate his daughter, the Empress Matilda, as his heir. Unfortunately, there were many figures who were keen to prevent this, none more so than Henry's nephew, Stephen of Blois. Stephen of Blois seized the throne with the help of his brother Henry, Bishop of Winchester. The subsequent civil war that broke out between Stephen and Matilda became known as the Anarchy. Stephen's reign would long be remembered as a time of rebellion, revolt, and conflict, not only with Welsh leaders, but also English barons and Scottish invaders. The Welsh took the opportunity of the anarchy to recover their lands lost to the Marcher lords, men with noble status appointed by the King of England to guard and manage the Welsh border. The revolt began in South Wales when Hywel ap Merdwd, Lord of Brecain Iog, I don't know how to say it, and his men successfully destroyed the Anglo-Norman forces led by Maurice de Londres, Lord of Kidwelly. The Battle of Loucoeur, also known as the Battle of Gower, took place between Luhor and Swansea on New Year's Day. On New Year's Day in 1136. The Normans had underestimated the Welsh forces. They had anticipated a few raiding bands, but were shaken to discover an imposing Welsh army, which, with the element of surprise, was able to emerge victorious in the battle. The Norman loss was felt keenly, with 500 men dead. This great Welsh victory gave the Welsh the self-belief that they could win and defeat the enemy. Maurice was subsequently driven back to Kidwelly Castle. Encouraged by this great victory, Gruffydd ap Rhys, Gwenllian's husband, traveled to Gwynedd to meet with his father-in-law and planned to expel the Norman lords from Wales for once and for all. However, Maurice, Lord of Kidwelly, was far from giving up on his conquests. After suffering military humiliation against the Welsh at Loucoeur, he proceeded to retaliate with several lightning raids against the Welsh in Deheubarth, whilst also arranging for fresh reinforcements. Fortunately, Gwenllian had been advised that Norman troop ships had been heading up the Glamorgan coast. With news of this imminent attack, Gwenllian was forced to act quickly. She wasted no time in raising an army for battle. Sadly, the army she said was able to gather at short notice was small and poorly equipped. The few hundred men were up against well-armed Anglo-Norman soldiers who were now arriving in large numbers. Gwenllian decided that the best tactic would be to launch another guerrilla-style campaign against the Normans. This would buy her time until her husband could return. Gwenllian decided to divide her troops. She sent some of them to attack the Norman ships under the watchful eye of a fellow Welsh chieftain, Gruffydd ap Llywelyn. The rest of her men stayed hidden in the woods just north of Kidwelly Castle, where they could cut off Maurice's supply chain. Sadly for Gwenllian, she was about to become the victim of a most treacherous deed. When she was betrayed by Gruffydd ap Llywelyn, who revealed her position, her fate was sealed. Despite her small army, she would still have had the element of surprise to help her, but because of Gruffydd ap Llywelyn's treachery and deceit, this was no longer the case. Gwenllian and her two eldest sons readied for battle. Gwenllian led her army out of the forest to attack Maurice at Kidwelly Castle. However, her small force was routed, and during the battle she fell from her horse. In the chaos, her eldest son, Morgan, attempted to protect his mother, but tragically died in the process. Meanwhile, her other son, Maelgwyn, watched on in horror as his mother was captured and then beheaded on the battlefield. Wow. With one son dead, another captured, and Princess Gwenllian slain in cold blood, news of this tragic battle spread quickly. Gwenllian's death as leader of the patriotic revolt was to have cataclysmic repercussions and inevitably contribute to the Great Revolt of 1136, with the Welsh vowing to seek revenge for her tragic death. Meanwhile, upon the hearing of the news, Gwenllian's brothers, her husband, and her father retaliated and took on the enemy. Eventually, the Prince of Deheubarth was able to reclaim his rightful land and power, whilst his youngest son with Gwenllian became Lord Rhys as important famous Welsh ruler who went on to make his mark. Only a year after her execution on the battlefield, her husband Gruffudd passed away, with many claiming that he died of a broken heart, poisoned more than likely. Gwenllian's legacy would continue to live on in the battle cry of the Welsh soldiers, "Revenge for Gwenllian!" Today, her ghost is said to still haunt the area of Kidwelly Castle, and the field where the battle was fought is known as the Field of Gwenllian. Princess Gwenllian was a warrior, a loyal wife, a brave leader and patriot. Her sacrifice was not forgotten. Didale Ecos, Gwenllian! Revenge for Gwenllian! Okay, and that's a little bit. Jessica Brain is a freelance writer specializing in history, based in Kent, and a lover of all things historical. Cool. Okay. Looked up a few other things. I wanted to read that because I did, all this masculine oriented stuff. So I like to balance it out, including reading from both women and men as authors. Okay. Because I learn from both. Both are talented, right? It's true. Okay. Let's see. In my opinion, of course. All right. The National Eisteddfod of Wales is the largest and oldest celebration of Welsh culture, unique throughout Europe, as each year it visits a different area of Wales. Eisteddfod literally means a sitting. Eisteddfod, E-I-S-T-E-D-D, equals to sit. Perhaps a reference to the hand-carved chair traditionally awarded to the best poet in the ceremony, the crowning of the bard. Okay, I'm going to stop right there for a second. Now, I recently watched a video, and the person was talking about druids, bards, various subjects, but specifically bards as being seers, okay, foretelling the future, things like that. When you think about it, music and intuition are hand in hand. Anyway, with that said, the National Eisteddfod of Wales dates back to 1176, but it is said that the first Eisteddfod was held. Lord Rhys invited poets, or Rhys, R-H-Y-S, I don't know, invited poets and musicians from all over Wales to a grand gathering at his castle in Cardigan. A chair, important, at the Lord's table was awarded to the best poet and musician, a tradition that continues today in modern Eisteddfod. Following 1176, many Eisteddfoda were held throughout Wales under the patronage of the Welsh gentry and noblemen. Soon, the Eisteddfod developed into a huge folk festival on a grand scale. After declining in popularity in the 18th century, it was revived in the early years of the 19th. In 1880, the National Eisteddfod Association was formed, and since then, the Eisteddfod has been held every year except, hear this, 1914 and 1940. World War I, World War II build up. Okay. The Gorsedd of Bards, let's see, Gorsedd Beard made its first appearance at the Eisteddfod at the Ivy Bush Inn in Carmarthen in 1819, and its close association with the festival has remained. It is an association of poets, writers, musicians, artists, and individuals who have made a significant and distinguished contribution to Welsh language, literature, and culture. Its members are known as Druids, and the color of their costumes are white, blue, or green. Now remember that in the last book. The colors indicated rank, position, whatever, is indicative of various ranks. Okay. The head of Gorset of Bards is the Archdruid, or Archdruid. Is elected for a term of 3 years and is responsible for conducting the Gorset ceremonies during Eisteddfod week. These ceremonies are held to honor literary achievements amongst Welsh poets and prose writers. 3 Gorset ceremonies are held during the Eisteddfod week. The crowning, or the coroni of the bard, awarded to the poet judged best in the competitions in free meter. Okay. The awarding of the prose medal for the winner of prose competitions. The chairing, Caderio of the bard, for the best long poem. Memorized, I might add. That's right. That's how it was done originally. You had to know it through and through. You couldn't just read it in a book. You had to know. During these ceremonies, the Archdruid and the members of the Gorset of Bards gather on the Eisteddfod stage in their ceremonial robes. And in fact, I would say you are not a druid or even a low-level bard if you haven't memorized, right? At least your own work, let alone the work of others, right? Just saying. Otherwise, you're just playing patty cake and selling books. Just saying. When the Archdruid reveals the identity of the winning poet, but that's a high goal. I know that, to memorize, but that's real. That's more core than reading a book. Okay? And it's oral tradition. Okay? A trumpet calls the people together, and the Gorset prayer is chanted. The Archdruid withdraws a sword from its sheath 3 times. He cries, "Is there peace?" To which the assembly reply, "Peace." So you would repeat that 3 times, right? Then the horn of plenty is presented to the Archdruid by a young local married woman who urges him to drink the wine of welcome. A young girl presents him with a basket of flowers from the land and soil of Wales. Sovereignty of the land, right? Blessing of the land. And a floral dance is performed based on a pattern of flower gathering from the field. The Gorset ceremonies are unique to Wales and National Eisteddfod. Okay, so the floral dance, very traditional. Different cultures have something similar. The gathering of the flowers from the field, the soil, connection to the land, right? As well as the traditional ceremonies, there's another side to Eisteddfod. Mazier Eisteddfod, the Eisteddfod field. Here you find lots of stalls associated with mainly with crafts, music, books, and food. Music competitions and radio shows take place in the theater, Imace, the theater on the field. There was also a society's tent, a literature tent, and the very popular live music tent. Only songs in Welsh can be performed. Cool. The learner's tent is for teachers and students of the Welsh language. Yep, it's core. Each year, Welsh people from all over the world returned to Wales to take part in a special welcoming ceremony staged during Eisteddfod Week. The ceremony is organized by Wales International, an association of expatriates from all over the world. The Wales International ceremony is held within the Eisteddfod Pavilion on Thursday of Eisteddfod Week. Thursday, huh? Interesting. There's also an Eisteddfod held twice a year in Cumbut province of, Patagonia, South America, in the towns of Gaiman and Trilou. I don't know. This Eisteddfod started in the 1880s and includes competitions in music. Now remember that early on, you had Welsh pirates, seamen, okay? And the Spanish ruled the seas for a long time. So everybody would have known them. There would have been interaction. There would have been going to other people's courts if you were, high level. The winner of the best poem in Spanish receives a silver crown. The ceremony to honor the best poet in Welsh involves a religious ceremony asking for peace and health, and involves the chairing of the bard in an ornate carved wooden chair. The main Eisteddfod at Trilou is a very big gathering with visitors from all over the world. I bet you that would be cool. God, all those folkish people joining up. And I know it's in a different country, whatever, but hey, at least it's still going on. It didn't die out yet. But those little corners, right, of society that nobody pays attention to, except for the hardcore people. If you are not going back to save things, what are you doing? Serious. You're just running a business. I know that sounds harsh, but think about it. What are you restoring? What are you saving? Right? That's key. That's, to me, that's essential. How can you sit here and act like that didn't happen, right? Well, you can. Okay. The English Invasion of Wales by Ben Jonson. Unlike their invasion of England, the Norman penetration into Wales took place very gradually after 1066. Big year. The new King of England, William I, the Conqueror, quickly secured his English kingdom by establishing earldoms along the Anglo-Welsh borders at Hereford, Shrewsbury, and Chester. But it wasn't long before the new Norman lords began to look at expanding their lands westward into Wales. William himself led a military expedition across South Wales to St. David's in 1081, and is said to have had founded Cardiff on the way. Throughout the 1080s and 1090s, the Normans penetrated areas of Wales, conquering and settling Pembroke and the Vale of Glamorgan in southern Wales. England's King Henry I, William's youngest son, encouraged large-scale Norman settlement in South Wales, building the first royal castle at Carmarthen in 1109. The Welsh princes refused to submit, however, and took the opportunity to reclaim land from the Normans. When some in English royal family feuding took place following the death of King Henry I in 1135. That's where you have poisonings, murders, people disappearing. Yeah, because there's about to be a change of power. The Welsh were truly united when Llewellyn the Great became Prince of Wales in 1194. Llewellyn and his armies drove the English from North Wales in 1212. Not content with this, he reversed the trend of conquering, taking the English town of Shrewsbury in 1215. During his long but peaceless reign through the 1240 Llewellyn through to 1240, Llewellyn resisted several attempts at reinvasion by English armies dispatched by the then English King Henry III. Following his death, Llewellyn succeeded by his son, Dafydd, Prince of Wales, from 1240 to 1246, and then his grandson, Llewellyn II ap Gruffudd, from 1246. The really bad news for Wales happened in 1272 when, following the death of King Henry III, his son, Edward the First, is that Edward the Longshanks, maybe? Now, Edward appears to have had a disliking for all Celts in general, and Llewellyn ap Gruffudd in particular. The Normans did not like the Welsh. Nope. That's why I say they stole a lot from the Welsh. It's my opinion, and I know I have that ancestry. Edward achieved the conquest of Wales through 3 major campaigns and on a scale he knew that the Welsh could not hope to match. The first invasion in 1277 involved a massive English army, together with heavily armed cavalry, that pushed along the North Wales coast. Llewellyn's support was limited in comparison, and he was forced into accepting Edward's humiliating peace terms. In 1282, the Welsh, led by Llewellyn's brother Dafydd, were provoked into revolt against the English in northeast Wales. Edward responded with a further invasion. This time, Llewellyn was slain at the Battle of Urfone Bridge on the 11th of December, 1282. Llewellyn's brother Dafydd continued the Welsh resistance through into the following year. He obviously lacked the charisma of his brother, as his own countrymen handed him over to Edward in June 1283. He was later tried and executed. The Welsh ruling dynasties were in tatters, and Wales virtually became an English colony. Each of Edward's campaigns was marked with the building of some of Europe's finest and grandest castles. The scale of the buildings was to leave no doubt in the minds of the Welsh who their new rulers were. Flint, Rhuddlan, Builth, and Aberystwyth, castles were all built following the first invasion. Following the second invasion, the building of Conway, Caernarfon, and Harlech castles were more closely guarded. The Snowdonia area. Following a Welsh rebellion against English oppression in 1294, Beaumaris Castle was built to secure the Isle of Anglesey. Masons from Savoy, under the watchful eye of Master Mason James of St. George, were responsible for the design and detail of these grand castles. One of the grandest in Caernarfon, which reflects the design of the mighty walls of Constantinople, perhaps somehow linking in stone the power of a modern medieval king with that of an ancient Roman emperor. Interesting. Well, so I have a serious revulsion for Roman Greek worship. It's not my shit, If you're from there, cool. But no, not for me. Celtic, Nordic, that's where I am. That's my background. Who were the Druids? Druids occur in many mystical tales. In one, a Druid, Figol, threatened to bring fire to rage on his enemies and prevent the men and their steeds from going to the toilet. Their bodies would fill with urine, of course. From our knowledge of the world today, we know that this is impossible, is it? But so many accounts of the Druids are riddled with mysticism, magic, and possible exaggeration. Well, depends on your imagination. What do you think's possible? Interesting. The origin of the word druid is unclear, but the most popular view is that it comes from, Doir, D-O-I-R-E, an Irish Gaelic word for oak tree, often a symbol of knowledge, also meaning wisdom. Druids were concerned with the natural world and its powers and considered trees sacred, particularly the oak. Druidism can be described as a shamanic religion, as it relied on a combination of contact with the spirit world and holistic medicines to treat and sometimes cause illnesses. They were said to have induced insanity in the people and been accurate fortune tellers. Some of their knowledge of the earth and space may come from megalithic times. There's a lot of mystery shrouding the actual history of the Druids, as our knowledge is based on limited records. Druidism is thought to have been a part of Celtic and Gaulish culture in Europe, with the first classical reference to them in the 2nd century BC. Their practices were similar to those of priests today. Interesting connection there that guy's making. Connecting the people with the gods, but with their role was also varied and wide-ranging, acting as teachers, scientists, judges, and philosophers. They were incredibly powerful and respected, able to banish people from society for breaking the sacred laws, and even able to come between two opposing armies and prevent war. They did not have to pay taxes or serve in battle. Druid women were also considered equal to men in many respects, unusual for an ancient community. They could take part in wars and even divorce their husbands. It's Brehon law. One of the earliest accounts of Druids was written by Julius Caesar in 59 to 51 BC. He wrote, in Gaul, where prestigious men were divided into druids or nobles, it was from the Roman writers that the historians have gained most of their knowledge of the druids. And I bet they twisted some shit or didn't know. Make it up. Just compare it to their shit. Oh, it must be Roman. It must be Greek. Is it? No. There might be similar typology, similarities in people, but all these wars didn't overwrite of whatever the original folk culture was. They're remnants. So you got to wash away all the cloudiness to find the truth. It's all based in nature. That's my opinion, right? Therefore, it's not lost. Druids were polytheistic and had female gods and sacred figures. See, here's the comparison. They always do this shit. Rather like the Greeks and Romans, but their nomadic, less civilized Druidic society gave the others a sense of superiority. And that's what it is. See, did you read that? Less civilized, right? Which it implies what? That the Greeks and Romans were civilized, and the Celts weren't. Bullshit, my opinion. This renders some of their accounts historically uncertain, as they may be tainted with exaggerated examples of druidic practice. Right, exactly. Make them look bad. You're going to kill them all. You might as well make them look like goddamn fucking barbarians. Then if you kill them, they go, oh, good, they were evil. Fuck yeah. See what I'm saying? Druidic human sacrifice was recorded, but there is no definitive evidence to support this. So I'm going to say that's bullshit. I'm going to say that the Romans fucking used goddamn fucking human sacrifice. All right? It's possible. You know, gray, light, dark, whatever. There is really no neutral, right? Either you love the kid or you don't. Huh? Just saying. Think about that in context. Within the Druid class, it is believed that there were subsections, all with color-coded robes. Now that makes sense. The eldest Druid, or one deemed to be the most wise, was the Arch-Druid, and would wear gold robes. The ordinary Druids would wear white and act as priests. The sacrificers would fight and wear red. The blue bards were artistic, and new recruits to Druidism completed lesser tasks and were held in lesser esteem, wearing brown or black. All aspects of Druidism were well structured and ordered. That does not sound like uncivilized to me. From the hierarchy of the Druid class to their pattern of life that followed nature's cycles, they observed lunar, solar, and seasonal cycles, and worshipped according to these on 8 main sacred days. They would celebrate New Year on Samhain, the day that we refer to as Halloween. This was when the last harvest would take place, and it was a day full of mysticism and spirituality, because the living and the deceased were the closest to being revealed to each other than on any other day. Yule was the winter solstice, a time when Druids would sit on mounds of earth. For example, a Newgrange in Ireland. Remember, people use terms as overlay. So Yule might have meant something different there. Might have been called something different. Of course, Gaelic. Imbolc, February 2nd, my birthday. Well, 1st or 2nd, depending. I'm born on the cusp since I'm born at night. Involved using sheep's milk by way of celebrating motherhood. Ostara was the spring equinox, and Beltane took place on April 30th as a day of fertility. Litha was the summer solstice, a time when they believed that the Holly King would take over from the Oak King of Yule. Ugnasa was the first harvest on the 2nd of August, and Mabon was the autumn equinox. The cycle of holy days would repeat itself again, reflecting the cycles of nature, planets, and indeed life itself. As the Druids believed in reincarnation, they also believed that sins committed in a previous life could be made up for in the next. A little bit of overlay, but I think there is something to counterbalance. Like, you do something really shitty to someone else, right? You don't apologize. You never do anything about it. You go to the spirit world. Why would you be held accountable? Because they expect you to act the same goddamn way, dumbass. That's what I'd say. That's grandpa. Goddamn back of the mountains. Their places of worship, temples of the Druids, were quiet, secluded areas, like clearings in the woods, like they were. Forests, woodland, stone circles. Probably the most famous stone circle in Britain is Stonehenge, an ancient megalithic monument dating back to about 2400 BC. Most people's first thoughts about the Druids might be of them congregating around Stonehenge and casting magical incantations. I would say that would be a place of observation, right? You'd use the sun to tell what time it is. Certain stars appearing might note certain changes in the earth. If you've been observing that long, you'd be picking up on details. There is indeed thought that this was a place of worship for them, as it still is today for pagans and other neo-druids. It's in the article. There is a disagreement, though, about whether the Druids built Stonehenge or not. I've heard about that, thinking there was something older. It's not clear exactly when the Druids came to Britain, but it is likely that they actually arrived after Stonehenge was built. The Isle of Inismone, Anglesey, and Wistman's Wood in Dartmoor are both thought to be Druidic sites. Indeed, Anglesey was supposed a place where Druids were taught. It took about 20 years to learn the lore, as it was complex. What did I just say about memorization? Boom. You didn't memorize? Huh. You're not on their level. Nope. Most people are not. No. As it was complex and had to be learnt by heart. Did you hear that? As they rarely used a written language, oral tradition. What did I say? This is one reason why we know so little about them. The Gauls had a limited written language. How do you know? According to whom? Caesar? Involving Greek characters, and then with Caesar's rule, this became Latin. Yep, Latin override on all the bullshit. Every fucking thing. Some legends must also be treated with caution, as they may have been altered by subsequent Christian influence or exaggeration. Of course, demonize your enemy. In the 1st century AD, Druids were facing oppression from the Romans. Indeed, Tiberius banned Druidism because of the supposed human sacrifice. Fuck that. He made it goddamn up. A good fucking reason to invade. Wakey, wakey. After this, in the 2nd century, Druidism appeared to end. There are a couple of theories to try and explain this. First is that, as with many ancient societies, disease, famine, or warfare could have wiped them out. The second implicates the arrival of Christianity in the decline. You think? Might they have been converted? Forced? In the 1700s, though, a Druid revival occurred in England and Wales. Famous William Blake, an arch-Druid, even took part in this. Some religions today, like Christianity and Wicca, have been influenced by Druidry. The number 3 was considered greatly significant in Druid lore and also by these religions. For example, the Triskele was a symbol involving 3 lines coming together to form a circle. Circles were key. Did you hear that? Circles were key to many Druid beliefs. The circle of life, the seasons, light and darkness. And that's all I'm going to say. Bam. That's it. That was hardcore. I know. I'm blunt. That's how I feel. You must have like a visceral hatred for Julius Caesar. I know. It's bad. It's only because they fucking destroyed so much shit. Pretty much wiped out Wales of their culture almost. Not quite. Fortunately, it was rooted, so it wasn't as easy. Many a lies been told. History's not I think it's his story, not mine, not yours to say. Bring that took your hand on the battlefield. Brave as you treachery, lies and deceit. Thank you very much for listening. I know I'm hardcore. Yeah. Circle round to the heroes, the women, and the men together. Harmony. Circle round. Love's flame. Folk soul.